Here's a long, flowing story crafted for a 15-minute YouTube narration, written in plain paragraphs, with strong pacing, emotional depth, and an inspiring ending. HOA destroyed my lake bridge, so I opened the dam and drained their $4 million resort. You never forget the moment when something you built with your own two hands is destroyed before your eyes. For me, that moment came on a chilly autumn morning when I walked down to the water and found my bridge, my pride and joy, torn apart by the HOA. Wooden beams that once stood firm across the glassy lake floated like corpses. Nails and planks were scattered on the shoreline. My chest tightened, and I felt the kind of rage that only comes when someone violates not just your property, but your soul. That bridge wasn't just wood and nails. It was a symbol of freedom. I had built it with my late father over the course of a summer, sweating under the sun, swatting mosquitoes, laughing as we hammered boards crooked and then straightened them again. It connected my family's old cabin on one side of the lake to the trail we used for fishing and hiking on the other. Every step across it carried memories, my daughter's tiny feet running across as she giggled, my wife's hand in mine during sunsets, the echoes of my father's voice telling me, "This bridge will outlast us, son." But the HOA saw it differently. They claimed it was unsanctioned construction, a safety hazard, and an eyesore for resort members. The resort, of course, was their crown jewel, a $4 million lakeside development packed with rentals, boat docks, and fancy restaurants. To them, my bridge wasn't part of the picture-perfect image they wanted to sell. So one night, under the cover of darkness, they sent contractors to tear it down, without warning, without permission, without mercy. I tried reasoning with them. I showed them photos of my family building it, explained the sentimental value, even offered to reinforce the structure with my own money. But they sat there in their pressed suits, arms folded, cold eyes staring back like I was some nuisance. One of them even smirked and said, "It's just a bridge. Get over it." Something broke inside me at that moment. For weeks, I felt powerless. Every time I went down to the water, all I saw were the broken remains of what I had lost. My daughter asked why she couldn't cross to the trail anymore, and I didn't know how to answer her without choking up. I felt robbed of my memories, my rights, and my peace. But buried under the grief, a fire began to smolder. See, what the HOA had forgotten was that this lake wasn't theirs. My great-grandfather had been one of the original settlers in this area, and the land deed, still in my name, included the water rights to the old dam at the far end of the lake. The dam that held back the very water their resort depended on. They had power in numbers and money, but I had something stronger, leverage. The idea came to me one sleepless night as I stared at the ceiling, replaying the smirk on that board member's face. If they wanted to destroy what I loved, maybe it was time they saw how it felt to lose something they thought was untouchable. I didn't act out of blind rage, I planned. I spoke with lawyers, double-checked the deed, confirmed my rights. I even consulted with environmental specialists to make sure the action wouldn't damage the ecosystem. It took months, but once I knew I was legally in the clear, I drove out to that old dam with my hands trembling, heart pounding. My father had shown me how to work the release gates when I was a boy. The metal was rusted, but the mechanism still worked. When the gates groaned open, it was like the earth itself was exhaling. Water surged out in a torrent, the lake's level dropping inch by inch, foot by foot. By the next morning, the once pristine view from the resort looked like a wasteland. Boats sat crooked in the mud, docks splintered, fish flopped helplessly on cracked earth. Their million-dollar dreamscape had become a dried-up basin. The HOA erupted in chaos. Angry letters, threats of lawsuits, even reporters showing up on my doorstep. They called me reckless, selfish, vindictive. But for the first time since my bridge was destroyed, I felt calm. Not because I wanted revenge, but because I had reclaimed my power. I had reminded them, and myself, that no one could erase my history, my family, my rights. In the weeks that followed, the resort struggled to survive. Rentals were canceled, investors pulled out, and their board meetings became a parade of panic. Meanwhile, I began rebuilding. Not the bridge, that would take time, but something bigger. I used the drained lakebed to plant wildflowers, to clear new trails, to create a community space for neighbors who, like me, had felt pushed aside by the HOA's greed. For the first time, people started coming together not to sip cocktails at overpriced bars, but to share stories around campfires on what was once the lake's bottom. Eventually, the HOA backed down. They offered me money to close the dam, to restore their resort. I refused. Instead, I negotiated on my terms: no more destruction of personal property, no more bullying tactics, and full recognition of my family's rights to the land and water. They had no choice but to agree. And when the lake finally refilled, slowly, naturally, over the next seasons, the bridge I built with my father still wasn't there, but something even stronger had taken its place. A sense of justice. A reminder that we don't have to bow to bullies, no matter how powerful they seem. Looking back, I realize this was never just about a bridge, or a lake, or even a resort. It was about respect. About standing up when someone tries to take away what matters most. My father once told me, a man's true strength isn't in what he builds, but in what he refuses to let others destroy. That lesson will outlast the bridge, the dam, even the resort. And I hope it reaches anyone who's ever felt powerless against the tides of greed. Because sometimes, the only way to restore balance is to open the gates and let the waters run free. Would you like me to adapt this into a spoken YouTube script style, with more conversational asides, tension building pauses, and dramatic beats, so it feels perfectly paced for narration?